everybody. Thank you for joining us for another one of our lectures. My name is Ted Olson. I'm with the Friends of Parker River National Wildlife Refuge. We're the nonprofit group that helps with these kind of outreach events as well as fundraising. And just to give you a little bit of background, the Friends were actually founded back in 1992, so it's been around for a while. One of the early fundraising efforts was to help raise money for this facility that we're in. This was built around 2003, I think it was. And we're involved in some additional fundraising now. People that know the refuge, the Hellcat Trail needs to be rebuilt. All of it. It's one of the longest trails actually in the East Coast, as well as being an excellent example of the type of environments that are in a barrier island that make up Parker River and the refuge. So I encourage you to take a look at the materials that we have out here. We actually have a program where donors can have an engraved plank with their name or a name of loved one gift. We have some memorials that people have been donating for. They'll be placed in the boardwalks that go down the island. We're starting with the lot number 1 boardwalk. And we actually have over 100 now donors, which would take up about 30% of that boardwalk, the first. So this is to help replace all of the boards that are going on the boardwalk, as well as raise funds for the entire rebuild of the Hellcat Trail. That is in the design phase right now. It'll probably start sometime in 2019 or so. But we're very pleased today to have Peter Green back with us. He gave a lecture last year that was really well thought of and had some great information about the wildlife in our urban environment. And a lot of people don't realize that that's happening. You'll see some great shots that Peter has. So, pleased to introduce Peter Green. Thank you, Peter.
Yes. Thanks everyone for coming. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. So like Tim said, I live in Providence, Rhode Island. I'm a graphic designer, so I work from home and I spend a lot of time at my desk. And luckily, I face the Superman building, as they call it, which is a big bank, industrial trust building. And before I moved in, I didn't really know anything about birds at all. A little bit here and there, but I didn't really care. But now that I had that view, I started to see these birds appearing on the building, and they would come down and grab a pigeon and fly back up to the top of the building. And all of a sudden I see feathers flying, so I pulled out binoculars because I didn't really even have a camera at that time. And I saw something that I didn't know what it was. I looked it up, it turned out it was a peregrine falcon. And then I realized every day I could watch these peregrine falcons come down and hunt, and they would eat on a rooftop over here, and there'd be blood dripping down, and it was just amazing. I got a telescope, and then a camera, then updated my lens, and just really got hooked on these falcons. And so I got a camera, and basically I live downtown, it's not the greatest area, so I try to be discreet with my camera. I don't walk around with a big tripod, I just have my lens in here in this bag. And I can always keep it with me. If I'm going to CVS, if I'm going to the post office, you never know what you're going to run into. So I like to show this bag because I recommend it to people. You don't have to take the lens off, so you can get like nice big zoom lens in here without having to take the lens off, put it in a bag, and switch lenses. It's nice and discreet. So. And also, in the city, everything's a tripod. So if there's a hawk over there, this is a bench, this is a fence, I can lean on anything. So it helps to be very versatile. So, as I was saying, I would see these falcons a lot, but they'd only eat up on the rooftops, because the falcons are the fastest animal on the planet. Peregrines catch their prey in the air, so they don't land on the ground. So I'm not going to see them on the ground. A lot of people say, oh, I see the falcons eating downtown in Burnside Park. But I know that the falcons don't eat on the ground, so when they say that, chances are it's normally a hawk. So while I was getting into the falcons on the rooftops far away, I finally had a great experience with hawks right in the park downtown. And when I say a park, it's not like this kind of park. It's downtown, so it's maybe 15 trees, 1 fountain, and 100 pigeons. So it's a great place for the hawks to come, because why should the hawk fly through the forest here looking for one little bird when there's 100 pigeons being fed downtown every day? So you'll see what really got me hooked. I'm going to dive right into my pictures now. And you know, so I got into the birds of prey just because I love the regalness, the power of them, and just knowing that they're here in the city was just amazing to me. That I could walk outside and watch one hunting like a Discovery Channel show. And it's also fun because there are only about 20 different species of raptors, so you can make a list and have fun saying, I want to go see this kind of bird, I want to go see that kind of bird, and actually check them off your list. It's not an impossible task. It's as if you wanted to be a birder and see every type of bird. That's impossible. But you said, I just want to see the ones that live around here. You know, there's still some on my list. I've never seen a long-eared owl, so that's still on my list of local birds. But anyway, this is the most common raptor. I saw 7 of these on the drive up here. This is the red-tailed hawk. Gigantic bird. So when you see one that's impressive, this is a female, which is thicker feet, thicker bird. All female raptors are also 1/3 larger than the males. So if you see 2 next to each other in a pair, the female is the larger one. We'll see some comparisons of that later. Again, I love to just show the urbanness of them. So this one, no trees required, only bricks. Check out those talons. And another way to identify the red-tailed hawk besides the tail is they have this kind of belly band. There's these markings along the belly, and it's more pale on the chest. The other common hawk is a Cooper's hawk, which is skinnier, more sleek, and a long banded tail. So we'll see some pictures of comparison. So basically, this is what happens downtown. This was probably me for a while, just walking past the hawks, not even knowing that they're there. They've got good camouflage, so you know, people are on their cell phones and they just pass by. Only when they see me with my camera, then they say, "What are you looking at?" So you know, this is what I'll typically see in November, December, when you know lots of the hawks are born in the summertime. In the fall, they're starting to migrate out on their own, and in the winter, they'll show up in the park because, like I said, it's an easy meal for a young hawk learning how to hunt. So I'll see them up in the tree, and when there's no leaves on the trees, the hawks feel more comfortable. They can see their prey more, and when it's colder in the winter, there's not people hanging out there, so no one's in their way. It's just the pigeons and the hawk. So there you go. You know, you can see this up in a tree, and a lot of times you'll see them with 1 foot up. Most birds just do that to keep warm, so they're not missing a foot. They just got one, keeping it warm up against their body. And you can see the beautiful talons, and it's like a dinosaur there. And again, you know, these are some of my first pictures, and just to be able to walk outside of my apartment and see this on my lunch break was just amazing. It just got me hooked. And then the hawk was hunting every single day so consistently that I was able to just go and sit with the pigeons and wait for the hawk to come at us all. So that was a fun experience. And you know, there are plenty of hawks that come, so there aren't resident hawks in the park. The falcons rule the whole city. They kill many hawks that come too close to their box when they have their babies, but plenty of hawks pass through. So, and they nest in different areas, but really right downtown is the falcons area. But here you go. This is a young red-tailed hawk with stripes in its tail. So after about 2 years, it'll get the full red tail that survives. It's beautiful with the snow. It's great for pictures. It reflects the light. Just hanging out downtown. So here you go. A lot of times you'll see the pigeons going nuts in a big flock flying around. And usually it's because someone dumped out some food somewhere, but a lot of times it's because they spot a hawk that the humans don't spot. So you can see this hawk is flying right through the people, and you know, they don't even know that it's a hawk. There's another young one at the bus stop, and you see people just don't even notice it because it's so quick. So that one missed, flew back over past the buses. And you know, again, my photography, I like to focus on urban photography because if this hawk was on a blue sky, that could be anywhere in the world. But to have a hawk with a Trinity red bus behind it and ripped the logo on the Providence bus, this could only be taken in Providence. So it gives some context to it. And you can see it's got some blood on its foot, so it ate recently. There you go, a nice, beautiful red tail. So there you go. Like I said, people will dump. You know, I always assume that people just drop their leftovers from their bag or lunch. But no, people actually show up with big bags of popcorn and big bags of bagels. They dump it out, and then the pigeons are all just there, and the hawk will come like that, and just grab one. Wasn't fast enough, but he'll land on it and then fly it into a tree or something like that. Yeah, in this case, you see, it just looks like someone dumped out a bunch of feathers. Beautiful red-tailed hawk. And again, the snow just creates such beautiful lighting. Just get a shot like this, it looks like it's in a studio, but it's right outside my apartment, so it's really great. And it's fun, you know, people they are waiting for the bus, they don't expect to see some wildlife happening right in front of them, so they would get some funny expressions, and I like to tell people what they're seeing. Everyone thinks it's an eagle. Everyone assumes when they see something, oh, there's an eagle here, look at that eagle. You know, so I try to tell them hawks, falcons, and teach a little bit. Again, you know, that's Kennedy Plaza bus station, so this shot could only be taken in Providence, and it's great to get that low angle. So they'll eat most of it. This is the one in the fall, and you can just see beautiful camouflage. This one I almost walked right by. So they'll eat the pigeons, they'll eat the squirrels, they'll eat the rats. I don't think I included the picture, but one I got a picture of one that had a webbed foot in its mouth, so it was eating a seagull. Well, this series is combining a different one. There's some with the full red tail are an adult, and you see the ones like here with some stripes. That's a younger one, so I'm kind of showing you the best of hawks hunting. Yes, the young one on its way to getting the red tail. This was recently, you know, just walking through on my way to the post office, and there it is, nice big hawk. Everyone's staring at it, and again, you know, they're telling me it's an eagle, and I'm telling them it's a hawk. But it's fun that it's happening right there. Get down low for the angles. Now, when they're younger, they'll have yellow eyes like that. As they get older, they'll get darker eyes. So if you see in my pictures, the darker eyes on the hawk, it's an older hawk. Now, this was a fun shot. You know, sometimes you're just hold down the button and take a lot of shots, and when you get home, you don't realize what you got. So in this case, you can see the hawk actually opened up the pigeon's chest and plucked out the heart. So that's the pigeon's heart right there with vegetables and everything. And like I said, they'll eat rats. There's a nice rat tail. You know. Now, so this happened last winter. This was amazing, because I was actually just sitting there talking to somebody about what they eat, and then all of a sudden a rat came out from around the garbage pail, and a hawk just came down and landed on it. Now, if you see, these hawks, the power of their grip is amazing. When they have Raptor Weekend in Rhode Island, and different events, they bring in injured raptors, and you learn about raptors, and they have this thing you can squeeze and see the pressure that you can crush, you know, you're squeezing pressure. And when I do it as hard as I can, it's only as much as like a little kestrel, which is like a falcon that big. So these hawks and owls, they crush everything. They don't just stab it with their talons, they crush. So this rat, like I said, didn't just land on it and get it with its talons to catch it, it crushed it. Because if it doesn't, the rat's going to bite its feet, it's going to be injured, it's going to get away, so that's the best thing to do. And then this was just really funny. He flew away with the rat and flew right past that woman, and I could see her hair even like feel the wind. So I went up to her and I said, "Did you feel something fly by?" And she's like, "Yeah, was it a pigeon or a bird?" And I showed her the picture of the rat tail. So he landed with the tree. It's a big rat, and if you didn't kill it, you know, like I said, it would bite its legs. I've seen injured raptors bleeding on their feet because they've been bitten. And you know, I talked to the park. One of the issues, it's great that they catch rats. If they use rat poison in the park, the hawk's going to die, and if it feeds its babies, then they're all going to die too. So the park is very nice. They don't use rat poison. You know, it's funny because they like to share my pictures to show that there's wildlife in the park, but they don't want the public to know there are rats there. So it's kind of, they're in the middle, but they promise they're not going to use rat poison. You know, there's a great organization called Rats. Raptors are the solution. They get people to, like at vineyards, to hang up an owl box, because at night the owl will eat mice instead of poisoning them, you know, so that is a natural way to get rid of them, of mice. See, they're really just friends, actually. And there's some flags downtown that I always beg the hawk, like, please land in front of that flag, please land in front of that. But you know, here now I've been doing this 10 years, so I've got a big archive, and there he is with the American flag, and there's one with the flag of Rhode Island. And like I said, there's so many pigeons that they normally wouldn't tolerate each other. Here we have a red-tailed hawk and a Cooper's hawk together, both hunting. So, and you can see the difference. Like the Cooper's hawk is slender, more skinnier bird, longer tail, and the big, thick banded stripes, and here you have a chunky, bulky red-tailed hawk with the red tail. But for that, and a red tail is more lethargic, will sit around for a while. The Cooper's is constantly zipping around, very fast bird, very high strung. And so, you know, I forgot to say, eventually, you know, I started doing the blog, Providence Raptors, in 2010, so I could tell these stories. Because a lot of my pictures, it's not like one beautiful shot that you're going to blow up and hang out. It's more photojournalism, telling a story. You know, no one's going to hang up a picture of a hawk crushing a rat on their wall. So I decided to, you know, tell more stories. And on my blog, if you go, you can see there's like, you know, exactly like I'm telling you now, stories with 20, 30 pictures that explain over a few months what's happened. And then since I've had that blog, it's great because now that people know me as like the raptor guy downtown, people will call me, hey, there's a hawk on the street, or I found this, or what's that? So these are neighbors from my building. They gave me a call. There's a hawk sitting on the car, so I ran outside and got some pictures. And that's a young Cooper's hawk, small guy.
How many pigeons will they consume per day?
Probably, I would say like 2 per day, probably. 1 in the morning, or 2 or 3. Cooper's hawk will also eat smaller ones, starlings, songbirds. The peregrines, like I said, almost exclusively eat birds. Peregrines won't eat mammals. Though the exception, you know, I always say they only eat things that fly. They catch things in the air, they don't land on the ground. But recently it clicked, there are flying mammals, which are bats, so they eat bats too. And some dangers that these hawks face, you know, someone emailed me, this Cooper's hawk flew into a parking garage and because of the glass couldn't find his way out. They eventually just, you know, shoot him out. But if he's trapped in there for a couple of days, he could starve. You know, there was somebody once who called me from Lowe's, the department store, and said, oh, we had a Cooper's hawk who lived in here for a few weeks and we loved her, we named her whatever, and today we found her dead. What do you think happened? And the thing was, she was trapped in the store with no food for 2 weeks. That was the problem. And then downtown they built these new bus stops with glass. You can see there's a hawk up in the tree up there. So if there was a pigeon down here, he could fly right into the glass. So I've spoken to them about that. They added stuff like stickers to try to block the glass, which is you can do at home if there's a bird flying into your window. Again, here I'm looking right through the glass, and I can see the hawk sitting up there in the tree. And then I knew it would happen. Somebody did email me a picture. Look, this hawk smacked into the glass. What do we do? If they don't break their neck, they're usually just stunned, and after a few minutes they'll shake it off and fly away, which luckily that one did. Here's another young hawk at the window. You know, they'll see a reflection in the window, and they'll go after the reflection. In this case, I called DEM, the guy came and picked it up. I'm very happy, safe. And this is the greatest thing too. This is right downtown, that bus station as well. So when it's really cold and the pigeons don't even want to be out by the fountain, they'll hang out here underneath the ledge, so they'll be blocked from the wind. So apparently one day there was a hawk eyeing these pigeons, and a police officer opened that door to exit, and at that moment the hawk flew into the police station. They sent me this picture of the hawk in that room, and all the cops ran out. That's funny, so he was in there for a while. Great, so that's the hawk hunting series, and then, so these pictures I was collecting, but I was still only able to see the falcons up high. I still couldn't get close-ups of falcons. So until I got to that point, I'll show you another hawk series. Because eventually what I did was I built up all this series of hawk pictures and some falcon pictures, and then I spoke to Audubon and the people who banned the falcons, and convinced them to let me attend the banding of the falcons, and that was the day I could finally get close to those falcons, which you'll see in the next series. But first I'm going to show this hawk nesting series, so this was great. So this is the State House downtown in Providence. We've got Independent Man up on top. And I would start to see the hawks on Independent Man a lot, and it was fun when tourists would come, because I would point out to them, I have a bigger lens, that's actually not part of the statue. You know, sometimes there'd be two of them sitting on there, and you know, I just thought it was a nice tall perch that they liked. But it turned out they were nesting nearby, and here's a classic sight of a little mockingbird attacking a hawk. You know, a lot of people wonder what these little birds are doing attacking the hawks. They probably have a nest nearby, and the hawk is standing on its legs, and it's got wings. It doesn't really have the ability to just go like this and grab a bird. It hunts by, hunting with surprise. The bird that it's going after doesn't really know it's about to be attacked. So this bird is flying around, it's too fast and wily for the hawk to just reach up and grab it. So around that time I saw this, a hawk with a twig in its mouth, and the only reason a hawk would ever have a twig in its mouth is if it's building a nest. So I said, if you see that, follow it. So I followed this hawk around and dropped it onto this fire escape, which was just like a perfect little nest/crib ready to go for it. So I watched that for a few weeks. See, here's a zoomed out view. Now again, this is a series, these days, with social media, everyone takes a picture and shares it right away. This series was a few years ago, and I didn't want people to walk up when you post this picture like of a nest, you get 10 people, where is it, where is it, where is it? And you want to protect the nest. So in this case, I just collected the series for the whole season, didn't tell anybody about it. I got permission from the building that I'm on to take pictures, I got permission from the building up there to look down. So it takes a few months, then sitting on the eggs and raising them, but it was a great experience. Yeah, so they bring in the twigs themselves, and it's amazing to watch them build it, because they don't just drop them randomly. One will put one somewhere, the other one will pull it out and put it somewhere else. Like they're using their brains to actually be engineers. And they want to build it in a way that they like. And they started early, this was February. This was on, this was on mating, this was on Valentine's Day, and it was funny, it was on a motel, hotel, so it was kind of like a secret Valentine's Day rendezvous. And they share the responsibility of sitting on the eggs. And like I said, the female is 1/3 larger. So in this shot, you can see the female was sitting on the egg. She looks bigger than that male. And she jumped up on the banister and flew away, and he jumped down and sat on the eggs. So they traded places. And there's lots of sitting. It takes like 30 days or more. I like that one. Why fly when you can take the stairs? And I love, again, the urban environment. Blue sky would be anywhere. Just the city in the background tells a little bit of an extra story. You can see her belly here is all disheveled. Usually they like to preen themselves and keep themselves beautiful and smooth. That indicates she's sitting on eggs. She's got a lot of work to do sitting on eggs. Moving around, they try to move their feathers around to get the eggs against their skin. And that would be a nice young looking male, I think. They'll fly over the highway. Got beautiful feet. If you only saw the feet, you'd think it was a dinosaur. Again with the mockingbird. That's my favorite one. And then eventually one little baby popped up, and you see they already made a whole mess of lots of poop all over there. I had 2 babies, and the mom would start showing up with different animals, lots of mammals. You can see in this shot and in this shot, of very hot days, the mom would keep them in the shade. So you see she's got the 2 babies here snuggled up against her on the above, looking from above. And she's got food here ready to go for where everybody is. 1, 2, 3, 4 animals there. Close up of them. Now, I don't get too attached to these birds because most of them don't make it. In this case, This one next to her made it. The one with the foot up there, for some reason, started wasting away. Maybe got a little rat poison in it or something, but didn't make it, so it slowly passed away and then just disappeared from the nest. A lot of times people will call us, think there are bald eagles nesting in their yard because the young red tails have the bald head, the white head. But bald eagles are actually the opposite. Young bald eagles are brown and they get the white head when they're about 4 or 5 years old. They work towards that. And by the time, this is that baby just like a week later, so they start to look like the adults. By the time they leave, they're almost the size of the adult, just a little more immature looking and a little scared looking and nervous. But there he is, see, he's got the stripes, not the full right tail yet, and like I said, just looking a little nervous. Well, he's about to slide off of that thing, but that's how you can tell if they're young. The next year they had 3 successfully in that spot. There's a nice skyline of Providence. So this, you're going to see, this is where the falcon box is, up around here in my next door. This is the big Superman building. And you know, feel free to ask questions or stop me at any point if you have any questions. So eventually they took down that fire escape and built like an indoor nest. An indoor staircase. So the hawks looked for other places to nest. They started to build a nest on the actual state house. It was cool. This looks like a Parthenon or something from Greece. And they started building a nest, but they didn't use it. A lot of times they'll build multiple nests and then choose the one they like best in the end.
Peter?
Yep.
Just a quick question. Are you, as a resident of a particular town, are there any types of laws prohibiting you from, if you had a nice piece of pastoral property, would you be able to erect one of those osprey nests?
I believe you're allowed to.
And is it good for the environment? Is it encouraged?
Yeah, you live on the shore, and those for the ospreys, and they catch the fish.
Or other
that's one of my
predatory
dreams to have
hawks.
an osprey thing on my. The hawk, would be harder to attract because the ospreys, they live by the water.
Right.
It's easier to build a platform. The hawks, they land. You'll see they live on the back of billboards and stuff. So it would be hard to draw a hawk towards you. The osprey would probably be easier.
Okay, thank you.
I also like this shell because these birds, they have 12 tail feathers that they molt once a year. So only Native Americans are allowed to own the feathers because otherwise people would kill the birds and sell the feathers and make money on it that way. But this one was cool because I was watching these birds for a while, and if you count, there are 11 feathers, and I did find one under the nest. So it's a nice gift, from the bird to me that I have one of the feathers. But don't tell the FBI. So this was last year, like I was just saying. I saw 2 birds sitting together in May, and if 2 adult hawks are together in May, they're a couple. There's no other reason why hawks would be together. And they were sitting on a billboard, so I looked around, and on the back of the billboard was this nest. They'll also, if you're looking for nests, they love like baseball fields, the lights at high schools. They like height, so that's the main thing, height, and the falcons are even higher, the highest final for the falcons. So that was nice to watch. I'd ride my bike over there.
Generally, how far away are you?
Probably to where you are. So I've got my big lens, it's got, and then, not only, it's funny, my sister does photography too, and she does weddings, and with her camera, she's like, her job is to pack 20 people into the picture, as many as possible, and one more. Mine is the complete opposite. I'm aiming at something in the distance that I want to crop everything out and just zoom into. So in photography, there's a million different worlds. She does all indoor lighting. I don't have any lighting. So yeah, for this, I'm far away. I don't want them to see me or else they wouldn't act naturally. They'd be scared. So I'm hiding behind a wall, just peeking out the side and taking shots. And there's probably, my original picture has a lot more around it, and I cropped in. So you can make stuff look great on screen that wouldn't print gigantic, but also, with the falcons that are banded, I want to read the little band numbers and see where these falcons came from, which we'll get to next. So that's why I need a lot of zoom and detail. And again, by the time they're done, they almost look like the adults. And that's the end of red-tailed hawks. doing on time. Great, perfect. All right, now we're going to get into the stars of the peregrines. Nice. This shot I love, it looks like it's in a studio or something, but it was just like a cloudy day with great light, so this is on banding day. Like I said, all my shots are far away until I can get on banding day when we're up there. There, Audubon Society and people from U.S. Fish and Wildlife are measuring the angles, which you'll see them putting the bands on, and I take the pictures and try to keep track of which adults are there that year. And this is a cool shot, but you can also see the falcons have a special little notch here called a toenail tooth, something like that, a little notch. And when they catch a bird, like a pigeon, it fits right into the pigeon's spine and just snap the heads right off. So when we go up on banding day, we find lots of decapitated heads and feathers, and we learn about what they've been eating. We find lots of racing pigeons with their bands on it, which is fun. I go to pigeon.org and some other websites. I find out where the pigeon's from. I talked to the owner, which I actually just did this weekend. Spoke to some guy with the bird was from Schenectady, New York. 2015, went on a race, disappeared, never heard from it again. Ended up eaten in Providence.
Did they get upset?
You know, I always wondered about that, but they don't. There was one guy who told me a story about how he had one bird that he loved and it ended up in Canada, and he paid to have it flown back. And because when he asked me, he said, "Oh, do you have the bird?" And I was like, "Oh no, sorry to disappoint you. I just have the leg, you know." But no, they have so many birds, and that they don't get too attached to them. But they, I guess, like he said, they have a favorite once in a while. But it's also just interesting to hear, you know, if like what is a pigeon race? You know, like, where are they racing to? Basically, they all know where they live. They're all taken somewhere else, and they race back to their homes. And then the distance to all the homes is known, and then whoever got home the quickest is the answer. And if you take them 60 miles away, you know, at first I was like, oh wow, how long would it take them a week to get home? But no, they can fly 60 miles an hour and get home in an hour. So the whole race is, you know, within the day. So there was one guy that said they have like a 100-mile race that might take 12 hours or something. But it was interesting. I thought it was like a week-long thing across the country or something. All right, so let's get into the falcon. This shows how I got hooked on falcons. This is the view from my window. God, I forgot my laser pointer. But so this is what I see every day in the morning, and then it's not silhouetted. But my eye has gotten used to the building's outline, so I know in the right, that little speck over there is a falcon over there, and that speck up there is a falcon, and that over there is a camera. So now my mind knows I can just wake up, look out the window, and see if there's a falcon perched up there.
That's an abandoned building.
Yeah, and that's the sad part about it. This is, you know, it was Bank of America, it was Fleet Bank. It's the most beautiful building. But 2014, Bank of America moved out, and they haven't been able to find a new tenant. It's a big controversy in Providence about who's going to pay for it. Can they tear it down? No one wants it torn down. But actually, right now, you know, it's got an amazing vault in the basement. They're filming a show a movie called The Vault right now. In the vault, it's based on some podcast that was out recently about some robbery in Providence. So they're filming it now, and there's all these 1970s cars driving around. It's very cool. Everyone's dressed with their sideburns. So these are the shots I take these shots from my home window. This is probably the most I could zoom. You know, I got the pair up there on the parapets. Or this I also can get from home. You know, as I upgrade my lens, as the lenses get cheaper, you know, now I'm up to 600 millimeter. I wish I could go back and take some pictures over again. But so that's the top of the Superman building, which is the tallest building. So this is the tallest perch in all of Rhode Island that you see. And this is where the nest box is. So this is the Superman building. There's the nest box. You can see one little falcon right next to it. So what happened was in the late 90s, well, I'll step back a little bit. In the 70s, you know, the 60s, 70s, a lot of these birds were dying because of DDT, you know, making their eggshells very fragile. And peregrines were wiped out east of the Mississippi. So there were programs from the Peregrine Fund to try to repopulate the area by bringing falcons into areas and releasing them. And since all these skyscrapers had gone up in the 70s and 80s, they would start to show up on the skyscrapers because it matches how they live in the wild. In the wild, they'll live on a cliff face. They don't build nests. They just live in the side of a cliff with some gravel. And then they like that height because they'll come down and they'll catch passing birds or whatever is flying below the cliff, so they attack from above. That's why they love the skyscrapers. So this spot was chosen by the falcons themselves. In the late 90s, some falcons started to lay eggs around here. And what happened there, as well as a lot of places like New York City, is the eggs start to roll off the side because it's a concrete, or the babies would fall into something dangerous. So the Peregrine Fund, through research, developed the right size of box that these falcons like, put them at a certain height, face east. There's lots of different clues, little things, drainage, and put the eggs in there, and the falcons took to them. And since then, you know, it's a great spot, and the falcons have been fighting for that spot every year. They have to defend this box. So it's the great thing is to see this little greenish room there. That's called the gondola room. The legend is that this building was built for blimps to dock onto it. And it's funny, I hear a lot of urban legends, which I'll get into in a second. That's the one that's true. So you can see this is where the blimp was supposed to dock onto, and there's a door there. And so it's very 1930s-ish, but then the Hindenburg happened, so they never actually had a blimp dock onto there. But when you see some of my close-up pictures, I'm in those windows looking into the box. So that's how I will get some of these close-ups. The other urban legends I forgot to talk about, which was in the hawk hunting. When I'm down there watching these hawks hunting pigeons, a lot of people say, oh, those are the government hawks, or those are the hawks the mayor bought. And I say, you know, I try to press them for more information. Tell me what you've heard. Oh yeah, Buddy Cianci bought the hawks for $1,000 each to clear out the pigeons. And it's all urban legends, because I say, what if the hawks flew to Connecticut tomorrow? Oh no, they train them to stay here. And I say, what about the pigeons? Well, they know tourists like to feed pigeons too, so they bring pigeons downtown. You hear lots of different rumors, but none of it's true. The governments do not buy hawks. You know, it started off like, hey, that would be a great idea, to the next person. It's like a game of telephone. The next person said, oh, it's true. And so people think, yeah, even these birds, you know, they think because I do Providence Raptors that I own the birds, or Audubon owns the birds, and we can tell them what to do, but no, they're wild birds.
You're missing an opportunity.
All right, there you go. And you know, watching these birds, I get to notice things on these buildings I never noticed before, like beautiful eagle carvings.
How far away were you took that shot?
Well, you know, again, that's near the top of the building. You can see it's grainy, so I'm like zooming into my shot. But let's see here. They're even higher up. So you can see these, they're like some kings, like on a deck of cards carved into up here. The eagles are even a little higher up.
So are you cropping half of the image off?
Oh, probably even more sometimes. Yeah, for putting it online, like in a presentation like this. But yeah, for printing stuff, you know, I can only print my best shots. And so this is the fun one. This I'll see right out my window. Like I said, the pigeons going nuts. And amongst these pigeons, there's a falcon right there. That was hard to spot, but that's it. And they'll fly by, and that one got bands on it, and she's got a pigeon with them. So this is, like I said, what I was noticing a lot before I was able to actually go up on bending and get the close-ups. I would just see them eating on the corners of buildings, with the feathers flying, and blood dripping down the side of the building. Now this was a funny one. This was recently. This was, you know, they were eating and all the feathers were in a mound, and then when they flapped their wings, all the feathers blew at once. So it's not like this all happened at once. It's just they're flapping and creating this whole thing of feathers. You know, imagine the people on the street below. This is probably like the 6th floor of the building. It's like just like above 7-Eleven downtown. So that's why I said always bring your camera with you. Just walking past 7-Eleven, and then as I get used to downtown, I know now public parking garages. Walk up there to the 9th floor, and you got a great view. So that's an advantage of downtown too. You don't have to know everybody in a building. There are public spaces you can get out to. So this shot. This is just zoomed out, so you can see there's a pair eating over here, and there are guys working on a roof right over there. And so yeah, I guess you can see from this shot. You're asking about my zoom. So you know, this would be zoomed out, and that would be zoomed in. So Yep.
If birds are paired, do they share food or?
Yeah, they share the food, and that's part of their mating too. They will bring food to each other. I'm going to show you that in a second. Now, for all the talk that I said about them eating on all different rooftops, and for me doing this 10 years, this January, finally, one day I woke up, looked out my window, and like right where that TV is, there was a falcon eating right outside my window. So I was able to get these great close-ups right from home. And snow was falling too, it was just amazing. I could show you some video of it later with the snow falling. And then I knew something was up this year because this falcon has no bands on it, and the 2 falcons that live downtown have bands, so I knew there was going to be a fight or something coming this year. Here they are at the very top, flirting and mating. Yeah, this is another shot from home. I see them on the built more a lot. I like this shot because it says more, and he's got the pigeons, he wants more and more falcons. But they'll eat lunch on top of these letters a lot. And finally one day the manager let me up there to get close to the falcon, and luckily she didn't fly away. And this is one of my favorite shots because it's just beautiful red, metal, concrete, and fierce look, everything in one shot. And again, they'll help me notice beautiful things around the city. This masquerade on the Biltmore Hotel. This is funny, somebody flew overhead. It looked like they were having a staring contest. And it's always great when you see them together, when they're bonded. And a lot of peregrines, a lot of birds fly south for the winter, but in the city they stay because the food stays. Migration is all about food. So if your food source migrates, then you follow it. But if there are a million pigeons downtown and there's still humans feeding the pigeons, they stay. And exactly like you just asked about, this is a food transfer, so that's a part of their bonding process. When they're getting ready to mate, this would probably be in like February time, one will catch food, hand it off to the other one right in the air. And another part of bonding is just sitting next to each other. So they like to sit next to each other, and then they'll even like bow to each other sometimes. You can see the box there, and you can see a little bit more of, how do I explain, you see that door, somebody can exit out so you can get onto the blimp, apparently. And they made it all over the city, so here are lots of different shots of them. And then this is the box, so you can see the box from the street. If you are in Providence, you can go to Audubon Penn and look up, it's 30 floors up, so bring your Zoom there. See them flying around. And then Audubon a few years ago installed a webcam, so you can watch them on webcam now. You can watch them raise their kids. See, so this year, female on the right, bigger. Male on the left, we have 4 eggs this year, that year. Last year they had 5 eggs, beautiful colored eggs. Only 4 of them hatched, but I did watch a nest once in Rochester where all 5 hatched. It takes a lot of work to raise all those babies. You gotta catch a lot of food. And again, this is me in that gondola room. This is, right after these 2 hatched, there's one still left to hatch. I love this picture. This was included in a children's book about birds that live in the city. So, that makes you feel good, keeping children. And the fact that she let me take this picture and she's not screaming and yelling shows she was either didn't notice me or she was okay with me being there. Close up. And they'll have a little thing called an egg tooth, which is right on the tip. It helps them get out of the egg. It's a little pointy thing on the top of their beak that helps them tip out of the egg, and then the egg tooth falls off after a week or so. But it's a very young age, you can still see it. And this was, again, it was great to be this close up for a feeding. You can see leftovers from a previous feeding, downy woodpecker. This, if you look upside down, it's a yellow-billed cuckoo. So they're eating a cuckoo. And when they're eating, when they're feeding the babies, normally when they're sleeping, they're in a pile. It's hard to count them. But when they feed, they're in a line so you can count 1, 2, 3, 4. See, this year they had 3. A shot like this, I got on banding day. It's the only day I can get close up. This year they had 4. And so like I was saying, people watch the webcam now, they get really into it. the funny part is, Audubon will get lots of phone calls, like, the mom hasn't fed the baby in 2 hours. Like, is somebody gonna go give it some chicken? Or well, the baby's gonna die, or where's the dad? And you just have to explain to them they're wild, we're not gonna interfere. And like I was saying, when they get fed, they line up and then you can get a good count of them. So I think it was 2 years ago, there were 3 that year, and people were calling Audubon saying, oh, there's only 2 in the box, where's the 3rd one, where's the 3rd one? And they're like, calm down, when the mom eats them, you'll see the 3 of them line up. So the mom showed up and we were watching the webcam, and yeah, there were only 2, so everyone was upset. So since I know the building and I've been there on banding day and I live around the corner, they asked me to go take a look. And I went into the room and I looked out the window, and well, first of all, I saw the 2 babies alone without the 3rd. So I looked down, and sadly, there was the 3rd one had fallen out of the box. So, it's sad, it's about 15 feet drop maybe. And then if it fell past there, that would be 30 floors down to the ground. So I called Audubon, I said, oh, I'm sorry, it passed away, I found it. And then as soon as I hung up the phone, that leg moved. And I said, oh, I gotta go get that. So I went out there, and it's very strange because normally I keep my hands off on banding day. I don't touch these birds, but in this situation, I went out there with my backpack, I grabbed the bird, I put it in my backpack, and when I turned around, the mom was there blocking my exit. You can see the walls on the side where I snuck in, grabbed the bird, and when I turned around, she was there. So I didn't know what to do, so I just shooed her away. She went back to the parents. I got inside, took the baby out of my bag, and it was alive and well. I mean, in the previous shot, you couldn't even see its head. So I was very surprised, but you can tell if you look at its upper chest, it hasn't eaten in a while. Now, these birds have a crop, which is something above their stomach where they can store extra food. So if you look on this bird, you'll see it's very empty. It's also interesting to just see how the feathers grow in with the shafts. But you can see these got a lot of energy. So I put them in my cat carrier. I called up the wildlife clinic in Rhode Island. I told them we're on the way. They warmed up some quail. And here we are, arrived at the clinic. And we fed him up some quail. And now check out the size of his crop. Nice and full, and his mouth is closed, happy, satisfied baby. And the greatest thing was banding day was scheduled for the next day. So he was uninjured, he was fine. They banded him and we brought him back and up to the building the next day and reunited him with the family. So you'll see this is, again, this is a view from my apartment. The eagle carvings are up there right above the light. Hard to see that's where the eagles are. So we come out this door and we walk around the building to where the box is. And usually we have about 6 or 7 people there. Audubon raises some money by auctioning the rights to come up, and we had a special guest, Senator Whitehouse was there that year because he has an office around the corner and he sees them a lot, so he'd like to see what he wanted to come learn some more. And you can see we all have helmets on because the parents are very vicious or very territorial, especially when they have their babies. And the trick that we tell people to do is to stay against the wall like this, because the falcon doesn't want to pounce on you like a lion and tear you apart. They just want to fly past you and punch you in the head. So if you're standing out like this, they can fly past and punch you. If you stand against the wall, they'll fly at you and they don't want to hit the wall, so they'll kind of fly towards you and then make a quick exit to the side. So just stay against the wall. And this is Joe Zabrowski, the brave guy who bands them every year. So we'll put a ladder up to the box, and then there's a secret latch in the back of the box where we'll take the babies out. And the parents will be flying around. They'll eventually calm down, but at first they'll be flying around with their talons showing to show us their talons. And normally they'll fly with them tucked in to be aerodynamic, but at this point they're showing us the talons. So there he is. We'll pull down the back of the box. I can get those nice close-ups. Looks a bit surprised. You have the male watching in the back too. And again, an urban legend is that if you touch a baby bird, the parents will reject it. This is the complete opposite. The best thing in the world to do is to give the baby bird back to the parent. You find a robin, definitely put it back in the nest. The mom is the only one that can raise it. The only bird that really cares about smell is a turkey vulture that smells dead things from a mile away. Great horned owls eat skunks. They don't care about the human touch. This year she jumped right through the back at Joe, but he's a professional, so he knew what to do. He grabbed her and she did his glove. And we said hello and sent her on her way. Those brooms are volunteers just trying to get the birds to aim at something besides Joe. So you'll see, like in this shot, they'll attack the broom instead of attacking Joe, so you can work.
Does color matter? Does the color matter?
The color of?
The broom.
Oh, no, I guess not. Good question. One year, the guy put a balloon on the top of his head to see if they would get popped, and it did. That was my first year attending, so I was like, what is this bandit doing with a balloon on his head? He just was having some fun. He knew that the falcon would pop the balloon. Yeah, so Joe got hit in the back that year. Now this is something that the falcons do to their prey, and they do it to us on that day too. If there's a duck that they want to attack, they'll fly to the sun and then straight down to the duck. So if the duck turns to see where the falcon is, blinded by the sun, and the falcon will get it. So that's what they were doing to us as well. They'll go right to the sun and then come right toward us. So my camera's, you know, getting all messed up from the bright sun, and my eyes are getting all screwed up. But that's one of their strategies for attack. And again, like I said, they normally don't fly with their feet dangling their talons like this, but when we're right there, they're showing them their weapons. Close up. And yeah, so we put one of these was the injured one, or the one that fell down and was fed, put it back with the others. And at this age, you can see their feet are gigantic. At 3 weeks, they're already fully grown, because in the wild, they've got to hold on to the cliff or the branches or whatever, so they don't fall off and fall down to the depths below. So you can measure the feet, put on a band, and you don't have to worry that they're going to grow into the band within a year. So that's the process of how it's done. It attaches the silver ones are federal bands, and these colored ones are called field readable bands, which are great for people like me with cameras that can read them and with the camera or telescope, and then look online and find out where they came from. All the birds that I see in Massachusetts, in Rhode Island, were from Massachusetts, because we're basically surrounded, and they're all banded by a man named Tom French, who does all the banding in Massachusetts. Then put them back in, and some people get pictures taken with them. And again, in a shot like this, you can tell side by side, the male skinnier on the left, female bulkier on the right. And so like I was saying, this is the pair that we had for 3 years, and now they're both gone. So I'm not sure where they went, but we have a new pair with no bands on them, so we don't know where they came from. And you know, I've been using the term displaced. The new pair displaced this pair to not upset people who follow them, but chances are they killed them, and they fight to the death, usually. There was one, I've heard stories before I started watching them, in like 99, the male had his eye gouged out by another male, but won the fight and lived on and survived with one eye. I asked my friend to take a shot of me with the falcon on the box, and then the second falcon flew into the frame, so that was perfect. Flying over the city. And you can see how quickly they grow. So May 10th, 1 week old. June 13th, 6 weeks old. They're already looking like falcons. The young ones are more brown, and then the next year they get more solid black and white.
So in terms of territoriality, is there only one box on the?
There's one box. If we put up another one, it would probably be too close, because, well, first of all, we'd have to put, like I said, the Falcons chose that spot. Because see, this is the question that people have been asking this year. Since the pair has been displaced, why not just put up another box next to them? Their territory is like a mile, so they're not going to allow another pair. The closest pair I know about is 1.5 miles away. I think if they were closer, they'd say, no, these falcons, this territory belongs to us. By the end of August, the parents turn on the children and chase them away. So they're like, you're done being raised, we taught you how to freaky, go off into your own direction. And also the great thing about the bands is this. So, you know, we had this female show up in Providence. So I was able to talk to the people who banded her and fans of falcons in Massachusetts, and got a picture of her when she was a young one. So that's, you know, anything. Again, you can see she's skinny and a little scared looking, and there she's fierce and confident. And then she's had 3 babies. And they're almost cat-like when they're younger. They jump around, they grab dead bones, they play with toys, they play with each other. And they sleep a lot like daisies and cats as well. And you see they got this bluish beak when they're younger, not the yellow beak. And they'll hang around the area a little bit, but once they leave the box, they're pretty much done with the box. And that's another urban legend I like, or myth I like to display, to tell the truth. Birds don't live in nests. So in the wintertime, they're not in their nests. Nests are for making babies. They're for laying eggs and for the babies to grow. Once they leave the nest, they don't even go back into the nest. They're too big for it. So in this case, once they're brave enough to walk around, they might go back in the next week if it's raining, or they associate the box with being fed. But they don't live there, the parents don't live there, they live in the area, but the box itself is just for putting eggs in.
Do they have any special behaviors for getting warmer in the winter? Does the cold affect them?
Well, some species do, but the falcons, I don't think they have a special layer of feathers that grow or something. I mean, there's up north there's the gyrfalcon, which has extra layers of like a snowy owl of downy fur underneath to keep warm in cold weather.
No, actually, I was thinking more about like what you said about the pigeons, where they try to get out of the wind and find a.
Oh, well, yeah, it's funny because there's, the city offers lots of places like that. So I mentioned Senator Whitehouse. Apparently outside of the ladies' room in his office, there's an exhaust pipe, and in the winter, it's hot air. So the falcon will sit outside of the ladies' room on the exhaust pipe in the wintertime a lot. But also when these falcons change, unfortunately they find different spots that they like. Like the one that would sit on that mascaron with the face, now she's gone, so the new one doesn't sit on that anymore, which is unfortunate for me, because I'd like to see them there. Here are the 3 young ones again, 2 on top and 1 here. So, they were born and went to the highest perch in all of Providence. These are flying lessons. You can see the mom in front, the baby in benches chasing. Now the sad thing is, one of the rehabbers that rehabs birds of prey in Providence compares it to giving a teenager a Ferrari. It's a newborn bird in the fastest body in the world, and they're not really sure how to use it yet. So 60% will die in the first year. Last year, one left the box. The very next day, it hit a building and was dead. Again, that's why I still refer to them as the band numbers, like 63 instead of pretty girl, because you'd be upset if pretty girl died, but it's not as sad if 23 died. And that's the reality of it. That's why they have 4, so 2 will survive. And again, this was sorry?
In terms of the other photo, you're probably using autofocus, and as you're panning through, does the camera try to focus on the building?
Yes, all the time. Especially on banding day itself, they're so fast, these falcons too, that like most of my pictures are blurry and it's upsetting, and you're like, oh, I got up to go to banding day and they're all blurry. But you get used to it, and exactly that. You try your best. They're a tiny speck of the frame, so the camera wants to focus on the building, and the falcon's a tiny little thing. You put it on the all servo mode and try to follow it as if it's somebody running a race. And again, I'm very zoomed in. So
do you use a priority on shutter speed?
I've learned that for my usage, my priority is getting the ISO as low as possible. I want the ISO at 100 so I can see the finest detail of the bands, of the bird. I start there, and then if they're racing, yeah, I know I've got to get the shutter speed up, but then it's always a balance of the shutter speed and the ISO, because now they always say, oh, we can get the ISO up to 5,000, but it's going to be grainy. So especially like I was explaining, a lot of I picture like crop out and I have to zoom in, so every little pixel matters for that.
Well, this is a great example. I mean, there's very little blurriness around the edges of the feathers. where there's obviously, they're moving very fast
Yeah.
across the frame.
Yep. Well, it could be up to 2 thousandths of a second or something. I go
That's
up to
pretty
sometimes.
fast.
Yeah, and sometimes it's even blurry at that point. So yeah, it's got to be very fast for the Falcons. And they're not even in their stoop. A stoop is when, the stealth bomber is modeled on the Peregrine Falcon because they're just perfectly aerodynamic. So they bring their wings in and turn into that bullet shape. You can't even see it with your eyes, it's so fast. I mean, I've seen a pigeon kind of explode because they smack into it and it just bursts. And they fly around and catch whatever is falling down. It's amazing. Go on YouTube, search for Peregrine Falcon hunting, and you'll see amazing videos.
How fast are they going on the stoop?
I mean, they've been clocked up to 300 miles an hour now. But they rely on gravity as well. I've read something recently about how these little swifts and swallows are actually the fastest birds using their own power alone. But that's why the falcons, they live at the highest part available, the highest space available, so they can get that speed. And that's why they don't go towards the ground, because they have to hit the brakes or smash into the ground. They just catch the bird in the air and keep going. And if you've seen those famous starling murmurations where you have thousands of starlings moving, it's always like a falcon is on the edge somewhere trying to get these starlings, and that's why they're moving in these cool shapes and murmurations, they call them. This is, again, a perfect example of just always have your camera with you. I was just getting coffee in the morning. I heard some screaming, went up to the parking garage and saw the mom, feeding the baby, teaching them how to tear apart some of the pigeons. And this is 4 shots put together. Like I said, they're cat-like when they're playing. They chase each other, they poke at each other, they grab at each other, the young ones, and they're just learning how to fly and use their talons. And if I'm lucky, I'll get a shot like that. Bless you. Some young ones right outside my window. And so then, you can see this was fun. This was one banded 85. I saw it again. This was June. I saw it on my thing. And then just 8 days later, it was out in Gulf Street, Mass. So at first, I was like, oh wow, that's far distance, but we can get there in an hour or so. But you can see that by the end of August, it had left Providence and was on its way to starting its life. And this was great. This year, I got contacted because this bird has been living in Boston for many, many years, and they thought it was, they just got confused about the fact and thought it was a different bird. But then they were like, wait, it's CA, that's not right. So they looked into it. It turned out it was from 2009 in Providence. So this was the first time I attended Band Day, so I went through my pictures, and I was able to dig up a picture of her. So it was really cool to see that she's surviving in Boston and doing well.
How young can you sex the birds? In other words, when
They
you look
sex
at-
them on banding. I personally would think it's difficult. They can tell apparently by the females are thicker at that age as well. They already have thicker ankles at that age that they know that they're, they could be wrong. It could be a small female or a big male, but when they band them, they usually say we have 2 males and 1 female this year. A professional who's done it a million times. Like I said, Tom French will band 20 different nests in a year or something. And dangers at the Peregrine Falcon space are also things like glass as well. So this building went up a few years ago with this big piece of glass on top. And unfortunately, 1 year, 2 of the young ones flew right into that glass. 1 died right away, and 1 fell all the way down to the ground and went to Thornton Wild Rehab Center. And they assessed him, and he seemed to be okay. He was flying, and especially a falcon at this young age, you've got to get it back to the parents as soon as possible because nobody else can teach it to fly or anything like that. So nothing was broken. He seemed okay. We brought him back. We went to a parking garage near the building, let him go. So this was him coming out, going free. But then unfortunately, 2 weeks later, I got a call that there was a falcon sitting on the ground outside of the bank. And that was him again. You can see he looks skinny, got dirty feet, he's been walking around. So the mother didn't accept him back for some reason, apparently. Also, the crazy thing about this picture is this is the door that we go to enter the building on banding day. So this bird could have landed and starved to death or anywhere in the entire city. But somehow we would like go where we would find them. So someone gave me a call, and I went. It was so weak, I was able to just pick them up. And one of the funny things about this experience too was, I said, no, I'm part of the blog. The great thing is people call and give me tips about falcons, and I have more adventures thanks to the tips. So I'm standing there with the falcon waiting for the wildlife clinic to come pick it up, and somebody walked by and said, "Oh, is that one of the falcons?" I said, "Yeah." And she said, "You should call Peter Green, he would know what to do." So now, so you can see there he is, young brown. He did go to a falconer to try to train him. The falconer then himself, he was an older man, got sick. And so unfortunately, this bird, he's now named Crypto after the Superman building. Crypto was Superman's dog. So now that he lives at Born to Be Wild, he's an educational bird. They bring him to schools and he teaches, but he never learned how to hunt on his own. And so he lives in a cage, and you can see he's got his adult plumage now, so he looks more like an adult. But it's sad that he doesn't get to live a full life of a wild bird. The other great thing about where I live is, I see the Superman building from one side, and the other side is just an alley, but I didn't realize the pigeons nest in the alley. So this is taken right from my window. The pigeons will come in the starling. So you'll see in my next shot, see the pigeons nest in these spaces. That's a young pigeon. Another urban legend that comes up is people say, "Where are the baby pigeons? Why don't you ever see baby pigeons?" Well, they're not like ducklings, little ducklings that follow their mom around. They're like the hawks. Basically, by the time they leave, this one's almost ready to leave. By the time they leave, they look like the adults, but clean and a little skinnier. But they look like the adults, but they're not waterfowl like ducklings. So because I have these pigeons nesting right outside my window, I get kestrels showing up right outside my window, which is the best thing in the world. Just be at home and have the kestrels show up. So the kestrels are the only, or not the only, but one you'll see that most of the males and females look alike except for the size, but in the kestrels they have different feather colors. So this female has got more of a, well, she's just lacking the blue on the wings and on the head, a little blue on the head. But here, this is the female, and that's the male. Got blue on the wings, and the tails are very different, which you'll see in some upcoming pictures. So again, these are all taken right from my window, which is great. Nice striped tails on the female. So they're like the peregrines. They're a falcon. They're only about this big. You'll see. I'll show some pictures of what they eat. The pigeons are too big for them. But I love rusty. It looks like a perfect camouflage for the city already. So they'll chase the large adults out and then try to get at the babies in the nest. This shot, like I said, I love where I live. I got a kestrel here and a peregrine up there in the corner. Taken right from my window. And now the hawks will show up to try to get the pigeons too, but they're too big. So once I was surprised to see this hawk jigging around, didn't know what to do with its wings. And here you'll see the tail differences. So this is a young red tail, it's got the stripes. And this is a young Cooper's hawk with much bolder, thicker stripes, and just longer, straighter tail, and a skinnier, sleeker bird than this bulkier red-tailed hawk. And this is a younger Cooper's hawk, yellow eyes, brownish. This is getting older, more slate gray, and the eyes go from yellow to orange to black. There's one orange eye. So look at the camouflage in that. You can't even see it, but there's a bird head in there, and then the pigeon will come to land right here, and he'll just scratch a pigeon and keep going. Again, right from my window. Red tail, Coopers, going after the pigeon. And got a pigeon there. Coopers with a pigeon. Flying through the city, waiting for a bus. So that's me at home taking pictures. And we installed a kestrel box on the roof because kestrel populations are in sharp decline. So if one was hanging around trying to get at the pigeons and they thought it might be a good place to live, hopefully one will move into the rooftop there. And then the final series, I will show you my favorite kestrel series. I could talk for hours about this. All right, well, like I said, the male and the female look slightly different. So we've got the female on the left, stripes on the side, a striped tail, and the male got the blue on the side, and a solid tail. And again, the female is a little bigger. She's on the right in this one. So I would start to see these kestrels downtown a lot. Every year I would see them. I didn't know where they nested, but I would see them around June once they were out of their nest and in a tree. So this was a nice shot. I got the mom on the left and 4 babies on the right. And I would always walk around. You know, they are also cavity dwellers. They're not going to build a nest with twigs. They might nest in a tree, in a hole in a dead tree or something, or in a space in a building. But for years I watched them. I would see them. This is a nice, clean, young one. I just never knew where they were coming from. But we'll get there. So this is cute young ones. They still got a little bit of peach fuzz on their heads. So again, this is the male adult tail, basically orange with the black tips. And then this is a female, lots of very stripes. Here's a female bringing a young baby some food. Male. And you know, I just love the whole urbanness of it. Here's one downtown. You saw the peregrine perched on this earlier. This is a little falcon all the way on top up there. So you can imagine the zoom on this one. Maximum zoom. Tiny little kestrel. And there they are mating. Like I said, I always see the babies emerge. Okay, now this is the story that I'm going to get into from last. It wasn't last year; it was the year before. So in this picture, I can see a lot. There's 4 birds. I can tell that's the mother because, like I was pointing out earlier, she's all disheveled on here. So because she's been working hard, sitting on eggs. And she just looks a little more haggard compared to these brand new looking kestrels. We've got a female, and a male. And also just the fact that she's looking at me, and they're all looking at her. You know, they're looking for food, she's watching me. So that I knew that she had these babies. Now the craziest thing was, I saw her feed these babies, and then I watched her fly full speed straight at a brick wall. And my heart like skipped a beat. But she flew straight into this vent. And I was like, after all these years, I've been walking past this vent. That's her nest. That's where she was. So, and it was amazing to see her go at full speed because she knew that nest. She knows how to get into it. She didn't have to land and figure her way out. So, but the bizarre, so she goes in this nest, waits there for like a half hour, comes back out. I got a nice shot. Then she'd fly back in, stay there for a half hour, come back out, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. Her babies were already out. She's already feeding. I saw her feed these babies out there, so what is she doing going back in the vent? And I just thought, you know, well, maybe there's one more left in there. But she wasn't bringing any food with her into the nest. And I thought, well, okay, maybe there's some other animal nesting in there now, but she's never coming out with any food. So I spoke to somebody I know at the American Kestrel Partnership. They're the kestrel experts. And she said, oh, she probably just needs some alone time because she's been working hard. And I said, come on, she's not a human. This is a bird we're talking about. She's not going to. And she said, maybe there's another exit out the other side, but there wasn't. So there you go, nice, beautiful red tail. So this was one of the younger ones, would come to the vent and beg the mom, come out and feed us, and the mom would not come out. She'd stay there for an hour. I didn't know what was happening. Here's the male with the beautiful tail. He too would come in and out. Here he is flying out, no food, not coming in with food, not going in with food, not coming out with food. And yet they were all disheveled, so that was giving me a clue, because that's from sitting on eggs, but they would have lost that by now. So I was like, let's think about this. Here's the male a little bit more. So I finally said, you know, I don't encourage anybody to do this to a nest, but I finally said, I've got to see what's going on. So I put my cell phone on a selfie stick, got on the ladder, went up in there. Now I'm going to play a little video, so let's see what I can get this video. Okay, so this is what I saw. Oh, wait. Let's play this. So this is the video. I just did that, and I watched it, and I said, oh, there's nothing there, just some eggshells. But then when I listened, I heard some beeping. And I said, I gotta go back and aim that camera differently. So I aimed it differently, deeper into the vent. There you go. Brand new born kestrels. The eggshell is still right there. So apparently this kestrel did something which is very rare, double brooding, double brooding. She had one clutch already, she raised the babies, they're out, and then she laid a second in the same season, which is extremely rare for raptors because of the time that it takes to raise them. Robins, pigeons, they'll have many babies, 2 or 3 nests in the season, but for kestrels that was very rare. So after this point, I happened to have just picked the perfect day. After this point, she stopped feeding the babies on the outside and started going into the vent with food now. Whereas before they were just eggs. Everybody can see the babies. 1 week later, a little bit bigger. Next week, already getting feathers on, colored feathers. And again, so the mom would start to bring in lots of food then. So lots of little baby birds, little mammals. They love dragonflies and insects. And this, I had no idea what it was, and I learned it's a tomato hornworm. And then, it was just great. Over the summer, people are like, let's go out hiking, or let's go do this. And I'm like, today I just want to go stare at a vent in a wall in a junkyard. And it's like, but it was the best thing. I just to sit there and see these little faces peeking out. Couldn't wait for them to come out.
So they didn't mind you taking?
No, actually I was in my car, so it was like a blind. They didn't even know I was there. Just pulled up, and this is in a junkyard. I didn't even tell the junkyard about it because I didn't want them to. I would go on the weekends when they were closed. I didn't want the junkyard to be like, we don't want birds in here, and kick them out. So I go on the weekend when nobody's there, and just sit in my car and take the pictures.
You're a stalker.
You were shooting flash.
Hog stalker, sorry?
You were shooting flash.
In a couple of the shots I worked with, because the lighting was so bad, because of just like where the sun was, it was always in the shade, so I really had to work on the pictures. Once, that one a flash, right, you can see the flash in the eye. Maybe in that one, right, because to see inside, I need the flash in the field one. And then you can see slowly being brave. And then one day I showed up and they were out there. Now this one's not the best quality because I had my giant lens with me and he was so close I had to use my cell phone. But I just love this shot because he's one day out of the vent. You can see the vent up on the wall there. The graffiti, it's just so urban. Some people commented it looks like he's like a rapper and this is his album cover. And then, this is with my real camera. I step back and then the background blurs. It's more professional. And they just look like little dinosaurs as well, walking around. And so for the first few days, they're on the ground, under benches, sleeping in the corners. The parents show up, still feed them, and they were learning to use their wings, climbing on the wall. And eventually they find their way into the safety of the trees. And again, they don't go back into the vent. There's no reason to go back into the nest. This was the last I saw of them. So they look brand new, like that car right out of the factory, right? Beautiful, perfect. And so one of my shots was in a calendar. So I was excited for the following year to find out if the kestrels were back. And I saw a little poop. Well, they repainted the wall, so all the graffiti was gone. And when I went back to check, there was a little bit of poop outside, so I'm like, oh, great, the kestrels are back. But then when I looked, it wasn't a kestrel, it was starling. And this is exactly what is happening to kestrels. The starlings are taking over their habitat all over the place. Starlings, aren't native to North America. They're an invasive species that were brought here, and so they took over the vent. But it also got me thinking. I saw the starling bringing in lots of nesting material, and if we go back to the earlier pictures, kestrels don't do that. They don't bring in nesting material. So I suspect something like a starling probably lived in here for years before, and then the kestrels took it over, and then the starlings took it back, or something like that. Because the kestrels wouldn't have brought those twigs in there. All right, I got 4 minutes left. I'll show you one more fun thing.
Is there a program to ban kestrels?
There is. And basically the guy who's licensed to ban in Rhode Island can ban anything he wants. But we would have had to have contacted the junkyard, said could be done in there, and blah, blah, blah. Sometimes it's better to leave them alone and not draw attention to them like them. I'm going to show you one more. It's a very unique bird that was in Rhode Island. When I first got into birding, I heard about this bird. It's a leucistic red-tailed hawk. So that's a red-tailed hawk, not a snowy owl. It lives in Lincoln Woods for a while, and you just go hiking and hope to God that you see it. And a few times I saw it. It's an amazing bird. And it's got a snake in its talons. And it's just amazing that it survives, because they rely on camouflage to not be seen by their own prey and to not be seen by things that might prey on them. But this bird was spotted for many years, and every time it molted, it would have a different sort of pattern of having one or two tails, color here or one in the wing. But it hasn't been seen in a few years. I remember people seeing it reported from back in the 90s, and now we're already in 2018, so it might be passed away by now. I'll end it there.
Is the East Coast the normal range for that hawk?
Well, it's a normal red-tailed hawk. I mean, it's just it's a red-tailed hawk. It's not albino. It's leucistic. It's somewhat like so it's one of a kind. Yeah. But if you look online for like leucistic, you'll see lots of like other leucistic animals and stuff. Okay, that's it. Thanks for coming. You guys have any questions? Anyone? And I appreciate you can check out ProvidenceRaptors.com for more stories and anything like that. Okay, you have a question?
This isn't a question, I just wanted to say if people would like to see live birds up close on Saturday, April 21st, as part of the Earth Day celebration, the Refuge will have a wildlife rehab here at noontime, and in the past she's brought these beautiful little screech owls, one red and one gray, as well as a giant golden eagle. And there's a program list outside for April on the visitor center desk. We have lots of great things going on here in April, including the Friends Next presentation, which is what, Monday? Mary Ellen Lepianaca's going to be here on the 9th. It's Monday the 9th on Native American artisans. So please pick up a program schedule on your way out. And thank you, Peter. This was wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah, come see those live birds. Yeah.
Are you shooting full frame SLR or the
It's the
little
crop
APS?
sensor one, so it's
Yeah.
like, they say it's like
Yeah,
1.6
APS, the
times.
low compact SLR.
Yeah.
Digital.
It's the Canon 7D, and so they say, it's like 1.6 times.
Okay, that's the APS.
Yeah.
Small and compact.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pixels.
Yeah.
And then also a camera lens.
Well, it's already like 4 years old, it's like, if you keep up with the latest ones, you're just too tempted, so I don't even look at the new ones for a while.
Peter, we spoke a little bit earlier. There are some magnets up on the table on the way out there of his, that has the website.
Yep, you can grab a magnet.
But did you say that you've got prints?
Yeah, I bought some prints for sale if anybody wanted to look through for $5 prints. Here's one of those videos show.
I have to say, because we're a government facility, that you can't sell things here. So I'd encourage you to see his website.
Yeah, you can go on my site, so, don't buy them from me today. Go on ProvidenceRaptors.com, and you can see them there, $5 for print. And you could hang up a bunch of them together. But yeah, this was me watching that falcon outside my window, and you can just watch it turn when you pick it up and goes back together while the snow came down.
Peter, how often do you use a track plow?
Never, I don't own one. Never, like I said, I just lean on things, or I get the shutter speed high enough that it transfers. As long as it's over 200, you know, 1/200th of a second, you should be able to freeze something. You know, human, I think it's, you can freeze a human walking at 200 or something. All right then, thanks.